It's the Happy Families podcast with Dr. Justin Coulson, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. We're Luke and Susie, a husband and wife radio team, and the parents of 3 young boys. And today we are talking about Covid-19. How do we as parents navigate this? What do we communicate with our children? We're all healthy, and you obviously are as well, so we can be in the same space.
I think that we should maintain appropriate distance. Isn't it strange? When we see people, we're not allowed to shake hands anyway. It feels so disconnected.
Yeah.
Wow.
Impersonal. And,
that's where my idea of actually greeting each other with a famous dance move might really come into play.
I like it.
And so the Macarena and the chicken dance and the nut bush, I think it's going to take off. It's probably not.
Probably not. But this is an interesting time. And the question I've heard going around a lot is, how much do we tell our children? Now, obviously, there comes a maturity state with children where above which they can hear anything and they'll be able to process it and understand it in a good and healthy way. But for those with younger children...
Well, we're overwhelmed as adults in the midst of this.
Clearly. I think the world is demonstrating that we're not quite sure how to handle it ourselves.
The kids are looking at us going, what are you buying that much toilet paper for? So how do we navigate? What are the things we need to consider in this, Justin?
There's a couple of different questions that you've asked. Luke, you're asking how do you navigate it, and Susie, you're asking how much do we tell our children. So let's talk about how much we tell our children first and how to have the conversation, and then we can step into the navigation concepts as well.
Perfect.
So we have this pandemic sweeping the globe, and our children are seeing our anxiety and they're feeling anxious. So the first thing that I would say is, please, you don't need to rush out and buy 3 months worth of groceries. We have, everybody's telling us we've got enough. We'll be okay. We just need to take a big deep breath. Maybe remember that we live in an incredible country and we do have enough. Just that one thing, stepping away from the whole panic buying, and that's going to change things. The second thing I would say is turn the news off. Really, you're not going to be any better off knowing or not knowing now that we know, and anything that's important that you have to know, you will find out. We don't need to be monitoring the news constantly. It's doing our anxiety no good. As our anxiety increases, our children see us being anxious, therefore they think that they're supposed to be anxious because we're anxious. We see them being anxious and we think, oh no, there's something the matter with our child, and we become anxious about their anxiety, and up it goes. We've got to slow down. I can't emphasize that enough. We've just got to take a breath and remember what it is to be human and to connect. The conversation, though, regardless of the topic, is essentially, well, what have you heard? What are you a little bit nervous about? What's somebody in the schoolyard told you, or what's that person on social media told you, or what did you hear on the radio or on the internet or on the TV that's got you worried? And then we answer their questions to the extent that they're curious.
Okay. Yeah.
So a lot of parents, I use this analogy all the time. Our child, when our child comes to us in the kitchen and says, "Do you mind if I have a glass of water, please?" We don't turn on the fire hose and say, "Open up, kids."
Okay. That's not what we're saying.
No. Look,
okay.
we wander across and we turn on the tap and we give them what they need. And if they say, "Can I have some more, please?" we give them a little more. And that's it. We don't need to keep going. Now, this is a really important thing to point out as well. If you don't know the answer, don't make it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when it comes to COVID-19, we don't know the answers.
No, that's right.
So just tell them what you do know. What we know is that there's a disease that's going around the world, and we're concerned that it could really have a big impact on the health of people. And so everyone's trying to isolate and stay away from people and close things down so that too many people don't get sick. I've talked to my kids about how, the survival of the fittest is the way a lot of people might look at something like this, and I'm suggesting to them this should not be about survival of the fittest. This should be about protection of the weakest. This is an opportunity for us to make sure that we're doing the right thing so that people who are not healthy and strong like we are not going to get sick.
Correct.
Because fingers crossed, we're probably, if we're in good nick, we're probably going to be okay. But I've got a friend who's got a son who's got cystic fibrosis, and talking to the kids about that, they go, "Oh, yeah, that could be deadly." And they're good people, and we don't want them to suffer. So we need to do the right thing. We need to wash our hands well. We need to, do the Dracula cough. Lift up the elbow, cough into the elbow like Dracula hiding his face. Just these practical little things. So that's how I would do it. I only answer questions to the extent that they're curious. Always tell the truth. And if you don't know the answer, say, "I don't know." Just focus on those things.
Beautiful.
With that, is it detrimental to try and be over dismissive and encouraging. We'll be fine. We'll be okay, in a sense where if everything else is panicking and you're trying to say it's no big deal, and half the time, even if you don't believe it, we'll say that to our children to try and stop them from worrying. Do we actually, if we're lacking authenticity and actual genuine honesty compared to how we feel, are we doing our damage to our relationship with our children because they go, I can't believe you?
Nobody wants to be dismissed.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be understood. So if we transition from what you said, Susie, how do we talk to them? Well, we just have the conversation to what do they need and how do we manage this? I love my 3 E's of effective discipline, and I love my 3 L's of what makes families happy: love, limits, and laughter. I've come up with 4 H's.
Oh, yes. All right.
The 4 H's are going to help us to navigate this in terms of what do we do now with our children. The first H is our children need to feel heard, which means that we're not going to dismiss them when they come to us and they're scared or they're anxious or they're concerned. What we're going to do is say to them, wow, this whole coronavirus thing's really got you worried, hasn't it? Now, that's not dismissive. No. We don't have answers. We're not going to fix everything, but we're actually I always say this: if you can name it, you can tame it. If it's mentionable, it's manageable. Our idea here is we lean into their feelings. We don't tell them they're wrong for feeling what they're feeling. We say, wow, with everyone pulling out of school, or with all the talk that we can't go and do the normal activities that we would do. The school formals are being cancelled. The fates are being cancelled. In New South Wales, the Royal Easter Show has been cancelled. All this sort of stuff makes you feel really nervous and worried, doesn't it? And so we're hearing them, not just intellectually and through our ears, we're hearing them in our heart. They need to feel heard. The next thing that I think that they need is they need humour. Like, this is, I can't believe how brilliant the creativity of people is when you look at the just sensational memes that are out there about what Australia is doing with their toilet paper and how toilet paper is going to correct us from the coronavirus, or what it means to be in isolation, and can you really expel your children from homeschool? There's so much fun creativity there. In fact, I asked my Facebook followers to share their favourite memes that have come up as a result of the coronavirus, and the thread is hundreds of comments long, and it's just so funny. Our children need to recognise that we can be in the middle of a global pandemic and still laugh and enjoy life, because that's how you survive, right? Humour is how we get through this stuff.
Yeah,
break the
brilliant.
tension. My favourite is the whole thing to if you're working from home, then say something that your children have done today, but refer to them as your co-workers. And just the therapy that comes from...
Oh, yeah. I had to write one that said, my co-worker led me to the toilet to show me what he'd done.
See, it just makes you feel a little bit lighter about a tense situation. I love it.
Me too. So we've got to hear them. We've got to find an opportunity for humour with them. The next one that I think they really need, so that we can help them to navigate it and so that we can navigate it as well, is find opportunities to help. We are living in a community that might have just gone a little bit bonkers over the last little while. I mean, if we could press reset on 2020, we probably all would push that button and say, let's just hold it in for 10 seconds, reboot the whole thing and start 2020 again. Obviously, we can't do that. But there are people who are around us who really need help. There are people who are very afraid. Some of them might be elderly. Perhaps you've got somebody in your church community who doesn't have any nearby support. Maybe you've got somebody from your school community or your neighbourhood who just needs some help. There are people who are dropping little notes in people's letterboxes and saying, hey, we live at number 12. If you've got anything that you need, because we understand that your circumstances might prohibit you from going out, let us know. We're here to help. Maybe take them a meal. I know that there's issues with that at the moment, but there's all sorts of different ways that we can help. And what that does for our children is it helps them to feel empowered. When they know that they're not a victim and they're not stuck, but they can actually go out and make change for somebody else, they can help somebody else in their lives, it gives our children a sense that, wow, we can get through this. I think that's profoundly important. And what it also leads to is the 4th H, which is hope.
Yeah.
The conversation that I'm encouraging people to have right now is a hopeful conversation. Now, I recognise that what I'm saying is very sensitive for some people who might be about to lose a job or might have already been laid off. The economy is in a really scary place, and there's a lot of fear around health and hospitals, and there's a lot of reasons to be scared. Let's be honest about that. But there's also a lot of reasons to be hopeful. And even if you do lose your job, Well, that's not the end, because right now the supermarket's looking for 5,000 people, please, so that we can fill. It's not perhaps what some people are dreaming of doing if they were working in something else, but there's always hope. Right now, there are people around the world who are coming together to develop ideas and technologies and strategies to literally change the way we will live into the future as a result of this. The technology around schooling, the technology around delivery of services, the technology that's going to be developed to make life better as a result of coronavirus, I think is going to be extraordinary, and humanity will be better in spite of the difficulties and, in some cases, tragedies and devastation that this will cause. Humanity as a whole will be better because of it. If we can help our children to recognise the growth that will come as a result of a terribly trying time, what a powerful message of resilience we give to them. So they're my big four.
Beautiful.
Oh.
Heard. Make sure our children are feeling heard. Find humour. That's our strength. Well,
We've got 1 out of 4 ain't bad.
yeah. Helping people and hope in the midst of it. I love it. Thank you so much, Justin Coulson. We're going to get you back to talk more about this in the coming days and weeks, I think.
Let's do it. I hope that helps.
If you've enjoyed the podcast, we'd love for you to leave a review. Like Ronnie, who said, great resource for parents. I wish I'd had access to such great advice when my kids were small, but never too late to learn for grandkids. Love the podcast. If you want to find out more about Happy Families, jump online to happyfamilies.com.au.